The summer of '98 was a sweltering beast, a relentless oven that baked the small town of Havenwood until the asphalt shimmered like liquid and the air hung heavy with the scent of pine needles and desperation. For 16-year-old Ethan, it was a summer of forced labor at his grandfather's dusty bait shop, a monotonous existence broken only by the lure of Miller's Lake. Not the main bustling side where tourists rented pontoon boats, but the neglected, brackish western arm known locally as the Salt Lake. It was a misnomer, no actual salt, just an odd mineral composition that gave its waters a perpetually unsettling murky teal hue and kept most sensible folk away. Grandpa Silas, a man whose skin was as weathered as old leather and whose eyes held the perpetual glint of a man who'd seen too much of the world's oddities, had a strict rule. You stay clear of the Salt Lake after the sun starts dipping, boy. Ain't nothing but trouble out there. Ethan, rebellious and bored, naturally saw this as an open invitation. His best friend Liam, a lanky kid with an encyclopedic knowledge of urban legends and a flair for exaggeration, fueled the fire. They say things get active out there when the light fades, man. Not just fish, other things. One particularly oppressive evening, the heat refusing to break, Ethan found himself staring out at the shimmer of the Salt Lake from his bedroom window. The cicadas were a deafening, unbroken static, the kind that vibrated in your teeth, a strange low hum, almost imperceptible at first, seemed to weave itself into the cicada song. It was a melody, ethereal and haunting, like wind chimes crafted from bone, yet impossibly sweet, a sound that pulled at something deep inside, a forgotten memory, a primal urge. It wasn't loud, but it was there, a subtle siren call beckoning him. He shrugged it off. Too much heat, too much imagination. But the next night, and the night after that, the hum returned, growing slightly clearer, slightly more insistent. He found himself drawn to his window, gazing at the lake, which seemed to glow with a faint, internal light under the new moon. Liam, meanwhile, had been telling him about the old disappearances, fishermen who vanished without a trace, pleasure boaters found with empty boats adrift, their bodies never recovered. They say it's the Salt Lake Siren, man. Liam had whispered, his eyes wide. She lures him in. Once you hear her song, you're done for. Ethan, though he scoffed outwardly, felt a prickle of unease. Liam's stories, coupled with the strange hum, began to chip away at his skepticism. The hum was no longer just a sound. It felt like a presence, a watchful gaze from the murky depths. The breaking point came during a midweek heat wave, the kind that makes you feel like your skin is melting. Ethan had convinced Liam to meet him at the rickety old dock on the Salt Lake side, just after sunset. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of stagnant lilies, and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like old blood. The hum was no longer subtle. It was a powerful current, pulling, demanding. It seemed to come from the very center of the lake, clear and pure, promising solace and something more. You hear that, man? Liam whispered, his bravado replaced by genuine fear. His cheap transistor radio, which he'd brought to capture EVPs, crackled with static, then went dead. Ethan nodded, his throat suddenly dry. The melody intensified, weaving itself into the fabric of the twilight, each note a silken thread drawing them closer. Against his better judgment, Ethan found himself walking towards the very edge of the dock, Maya trailing behind him, her eyes glazed, utterly captivated. As they reached the water's edge, the air grew heavy, thick with a scent like stagnant lilies, and something metallic, like old blood. The melody was now a powerful current, pulling, demanding. In the murky depths, shapes began to coalesce, not fish, not shadows, but forms that pulsed with a faint bioluminescent glow. They were slender, elongated, with limbs that seemed too long, too delicate for any creature of the lake. Their movements were slow, mesmerizing, like dancers performing an ancient ritual just beneath the surface. One of them, closer than the others, broke the surface with a whisper of foam. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, its skin like pale moonlight, its eyes obsidian pools that reflected the fading sky. But it wasn't the beauty that held them, it was the mouth, opening slowly to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth, each one reflecting the faint glow of its brethren below. The melody intensified, becoming a siren song, promising unimaginable pleasure, unimaginable oblivion. Ethan felt himself swaying, his legs wanting to wade into the cool, inviting water, to join the pale dancers. Liam took a step forward, his hand outstretched, his eyes vacant. Just as Liam's toes touched the lapping waves, a guttural shriek tore through the air. Grandpa Silas, a fishing gaff clutched in his trembling hands, stood on the bank, his face a mask of terror and rage. The sound shattered the melody's spell. The creatures recoiled, their forms dissolving back into the inky blackness of the lake, the haunting song fading to a whisper. Ethan grabbed Liam, pulling him back, both boys collapsing onto the dock, their hearts hammering against their ribs. The lake returned to its unsettling silence, leaving only the relentless hum of the cicadas and the memory of a song that nearly drowned them in its chilling embrace. Grandpa Silas, his breathing ragged, pulled them to their feet. "You foolish boys, don't you ever go back there at night. That ain't no mere fish." He didn't elaborate, but the look in his eyes was enough. The next few days, Ethan felt a persistent, phantom hum in his ears, a faint echo of the siren's song. He struggled to sleep. The image of those pale, sharp-toothed forms burned into his mind. Liam was worse. He was pale, withdrawn, and whenever he closed his eyes, he claimed he could still hear the melody, beckoning. One afternoon, a few weeks later, a terrible storm rolled in, whipping the lake into a frenzy. Trees groaned, rain lashed down, and the power went out across Havenwood. Ethan, huddled by the radio with his grandfather, heard the panicked voice of Sheriff Brody. A boat, belonging to the vacationing Miller family, had been found capsized near the Salt Lake Arm. No sign of the family. Grandpa Silas's face went grim. He simply said, "The lake claims its own boy, especially when it's angry." That night, as the storm raged, Ethan lay awake, listening to the wind howl. Above the storm, for a fleeting moment, he heard it again. The siren's song, faint but clear, carried on the wind, now tinged with a predatory triumph. It wasn't a gentle hum anymore. It was a hungry wail. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the Millers had heard it too, lured by its ancient promise during the chaos of the storm, drawn into the churning depths. The summer eventually broke, giving way to the crisp, forgiving air of autumn. The cicadas quieted, and the lake's surface returned to a placid, if still murky, teal. But for Ethan, and for the perpetually haunted Liam, the memory of that summer, of the song that promised oblivion, remained. They learned to respect the Salt Lake, to avoid its alluring pull, especially as twilight deepened, because sometimes, when the wind was just right, when the air hung heavy and still, you could almost hear a faint, lingering hum, a cold whisper on the breeze, reminding them that the siren of the Salt Lake was always waiting, always singing, always hungry for the lost souls of summer. And they knew, with a terrifying certainty, that she was just biding her time until the next sweltering season, until the next unsuspecting soul dared to listen to her irresistible call.